Hi, my name is Will Green, and a couple of weekends ago I was lucky enough to compete in the Transvulcania Ultra, which takes place on an island called La Palma in the Canary Isles, which is just off the coast of Morocco. It's a bit of an iconic race on the Ultra calendar. There's about 2,000 people take part in it, 75 Ks and 4,500 metres of ascent and descent, which when you read those stats it's enough to make your eyes water anyway. The island is beautiful, the race is brutal, I've got to say. This video is about 4 key takeaways that I learnt either preparing or actually running in that race. Number 1 is all around nutrition and hydration. Second one is all around race management. Third one is all around how to tackle the uphills. And then the 4th key one that I learnt from this particular event was how to manage and how to survive the downhills. Number 1, nutrition and hydration. My main aim for the brutal race, which was Transvulcania Ultra, was to make sure that I managed my nutrition and my hydration well, and that if I was going to fatigue on the race, which I did do, towards the end my legs were absolutely shot. But if I was going to fatigue, I didn't want that to be because I hadn't fueled myself up properly, or I hadn't kept myself hydrated across the course of that race. So ticking the box in terms of achieving that goal. But I think a learning from this race is that you've got to build into your training plan, into your long run training plan on a weekly basis, the ability to eat and drink little and often, and also just making sure that your stomach is comfortable consuming food, taking food in on the run. You don't want to kind of have any surprises when you're out there running a kind of endurance race, taking on food while you're running and your stomach rejecting that, and you then having to end up in a bush somewhere, bringing everything back up. So that would be a key takeaway, is just to make sure that you're building that into your training plans, the ability to fuel yourself up properly while on the run. So number 2 was all about race management, and for me on the Transvulcania Ultra it just meant splitting the race up into 3 very simple parts. So you've got the start, straight off the start line, you've got the first half and the second half. Coming off the start line, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't get caught up in a faster group. I didn't let my competitiveness or ego get the better of me, which means kind of running at a slightly faster pace than I normally would, because it's the quickest way to fatigue yourself, especially over a distance of a 75k race. So I just wanted to manage that part of it, and it sounds really easy to do, but it's not. I've been in races before where straight from the start line I've kind of got in with a group that were just slightly too quick for me, only slightly, pushes your heart rate up, fatigues you much more quickly, so you've got nothing left for the rest of the race. So splitting it up into first half, second half, again, knowing that most of the vertical in Transvulcania Ultra came in the first half, I just wanted to manage that, and again, not push myself too much, just go out nice and steady, making sure that I've got enough left in the tank for the second half of the race. And again, really difficult sometimes to manage because you constantly have a stream of people coming past you. But if you can manage that and get your head around the fact that actually you're going to be passing those guys in the second half of the race, because potentially they're doing exactly what you might have done, which is go out too quickly, then it's a good way to manage that first half. And then second half of the race essentially is just picking up the pace and finishing, trying to finish as strong as possible. So having enough left in the tank, because you've not burnt yourself out in the first half, to really push yourself in the second half and really feel like you're kind of passing people, you're racing on that second half. So number 3 was all about uphill running, and that is something that the Transvulcania Ultra was not short of. Overall, over the course of 75 k's, it was 4,500 metres of ascent, and that first ascent up to the top of Desadas from sea level was 2,000 metres, which was absolutely brutal, I've got to say. And then the second major one really was from El Pilar, 30 k's over to Muchachos, which was the highest point of the island. So my key learning from Transvulcania Ultra is essentially to build, I mean it's a no-brainer, it's to build more hill training sessions into my running schedule, and that is based around building up endurance, leg strength, speed and stamina when it comes to hill running, because I'm just not there yet, and there's just loads more room for improvement there. And I'm kind of looking at doing that in a couple of ways. So first is hill efforts, and second is hill sprints. So with the hill efforts, what I try to do is get up to Snowdonia as often as I can. And there's a path up to the top of Snowdonia from the railway station. There's a train that goes to the top. It's called the Lamberis Path. And the gradient is, I mean, it's obviously steep because it goes from about sea level up to 1,000 metres over about 10-12 k's, something like that. But it's good for just sustainable low effort running, so I can really kind of practice my kind of longer hill efforts on that particular path. And I do that a couple of times, and that really kind of helps me in terms of my stamina, my efficiency, yeah, and just the kind of the ability to sustain that over a period, or hill running over a period of time. And then the second way is the hill sprints. So again, just kind of finding a local steep hill that I can then do bursts of kind of round about 85% effort, full effort, and doing kind of sets. So 5 times 1 minute, 5 times 45 seconds, 5 times 30 seconds, and try to do that about 5 or 6 times, and then finish with like a 3 to 5 minute run up that hill. And those two things combined, if I can try and build that into my running schedule as much as possible, is really going to help with the endurance, the efficiency, strength and stamina when it comes to these hill runs. And hopefully, over time, I'll get better at them. So number 4 is managing the downhills, and again that is one thing that the Transvulcania Ultra was not short of. A bit of a legendary downhill from the very top or summit of the island on Muchachos down to Tazacorte at sea level, which is about 2,450 metres, and that was over a distance of, I think it's like 15 or 16 k's. From 2,450 metres down to sea level, which was absolutely brutal. To put that into context, it's a bit like running off Ben Nevis in Scotland twice over. It's the same kind of distance in terms of downhill running. And I've got to say, by the end of that, my thighs, my quads were absolutely screaming at me to stop. I wondered what the hell I was putting them through. First half of it was kind of okay. Second half, it just went to pieces. I'd really kind of fatigued by that point. So what I'm trying to do is work a lot more downhills into my running routine as well, and really kind of concentrate on as much as getting the right technique for downhill running as I am doing for uphill running. And that again is about kind of a high cadence. It's about picking a line and sticking to that line down through the actual trail itself. It's about not braking as you're going downhill and just trying to go with a nice flow and a nice rhythm. So picking a pace which is controllable, not going too fast and having to brake all the time, because that's the one thing that causes the fatigue over a period of time. I was kind of reading up about it in terms of the eccentric muscle contractions is what they call it. So it's where as you're running downhill, the muscles are expanding out, but then as you impact the ground, the muscle contracts, which causes the micro tears in the muscle, which then leads to fatigue over time. So really it's about trying to refine the technique and the efficiency of running downhill, but also just doing a lot more of it, so it just gets the body and the muscles used to that kind of pressure on them when you're in one of these events where it's got a lot of downhill running. So again, yeah, just try to build a lot more downhill running into my running routine, just so I can get much more efficient and better at those downhill runs. So hopefully next time it doesn't kill me off like it did with the Transvulcania Ultra.